Hello children, today I am going to tell you something about sexual reproduction in plants. There are two modes of reproduction in plants. Asexual we have already discussed. Now this is the sexual reproduction. For sexual reproduction there are two requirements, that is the formation or the presence of gametes is must, and the second thing is they must fuse with each other. So in this type of reproduction, formation and fusion of gametes is must. Regarding the characteristics of this type of reproduction, there are various characteristics. The first one is it involves the two parents. It involves two parents. One is male and another is female. The second characteristic is there is formation and fusion of gametes. And fusion of gametes. And in this type of reproduction, mitosis and meiosis, both type of divisions are found. Both mitosis, which is called as a equational division, and meiosis, which is called as a reduction division, both type of divisions are found. Especially in meiosis, meiosis takes place at the time of gametogenesis, that is formation of gametes, and mitosis is seen after the zygote is formed. After zygote is formed. Now, sexual reproduction. For sexual reproduction to occur, there are reproductive parts, and these parts can be understood by this simple diagram. Or to understand sexual reproduction, we need to understand first the structure of a flower, because it is the only reproductive part which takes place in reproduction. Now, the flower consists of a long stalk at the base. This stalk is called as pedicel. On this structure, a round structure is there which is called as thalamus. Whereas there are many whorls of a flower which are found. This at the center, this is called as the female portion of a flower. These are the androeciums, or we can say stamens. These constitute the male part of a flower. This round structure on which all the other parts of a flower are based, this is called as thalamus. The first whorl of a flower is called as a calyx, which is made up of green leaves, and these leaves are called as sepals. The second part of a flower or second whorl is called as corolla. This is made up of colored leaves, and these colored leaves are called as petals. Fine. The center portion that is called as a female part, this is called as a carpel, or it can be called as pistil, or we can call it as gynoecium. Fine. Now these are the male part of a flower. They are called as androecium, and they can be called as stamen. Fine. So this is the LS or longitudinal section of a flower. Again I am repeating that a flower consists of a long stalk which is called as pedicel. On this long stalk, a round structure is there that is called as thalamus, on which all the other parts of a flower are based. There is a first whorl of flower that is called as calyx, which is made up of green leaves, and these leaves are called as sepals. Above this whorl there is another whorl that is called as corolla, which is made up of colored leaves. These are called as petals. In the center portion there is a female part that is called as carpel. We can call it as pistil or gynoecium. And the male part of a flower is called as androecium or stamen. Now I am going to draw the androecium and gynoecium separately. In the androecium there is a long stalk, and it consists of two lobed structures. These are called as anther lobes, and this long structure is called as a stalk. Anther lobes consist of anthers. So this is called as androecium, or it can be called as stamen. On the other hand, if I draw a female part, it consists of a long structure. This long structure is called as a style. On the top of this long structure, there is a flat portion. This is called as stigma. This flat structure, which is called as stigma, it will receive the pollen grains or anthers, we can say, and then they will fall on this and they will form a tube-like structure inside this style. That tube-like structure is called as a pollen tube, that will reach to ovary, where many ovules are found. Many small structures, these are called as ovules, are found in the ovary. So now here we have finished up with the structure of a flower. Now since flower is the reproductive part of a plant, so it will take part in the sexual reproduction. Besides reproducing asexually by vegetative propagation, flowering plants also reproduce sexually by producing flowers. So this structure we have already defined. Now the next term is called as pollination. Before we switch on to the how the reproduction takes place, we need to explain what is pollination. Pollination is the transfer of pollen grains from androgen to female part of a flower. So we can define it as transfer of pollen grains from stamen to carpel is called as pollination. Now pollination is of two types. It can be self-pollination or it can be cross-pollination. Pollination can be categorized into two parts. Pollination. It can be self type of pollination or it can be cross type of pollination. In the self pollination, the transfer of pollen grains are from anther to stigma of flower of the same flower. So while on the other hand, in a cross pollination, the pollen of a flower lands on the stigma of another flower of different plant of the same kind. So that is called as a cross pollination. Now the next step in the sexual reproduction is fertilization. After pollination, fertilization will take place. It is what? It is the process of fusion of male and female gametes to form a zygote, and this zygote will ultimately develop into an embryo which will give rise to seed. Now through pollination, the male gametes reach the stigma and then fertilization takes place. After the pollen grains land on stigma, a pollen tube grows out of the pollen grains. This enables the male gametes to fuse with the female gametes in the ovule. After fertilization, so now first step was pollination, second was fertilization. Now after fertilization, fruits and seed formation will take place. So process after fertilization. After fertilization, the ovary develops into a fruit. The ovules, they become seeds, and all the other parts of flower shed off. Or in other words, we can say the fruit is a ripened ovary, and the seeds develop from the ovules. The seeds contains an embryo enclosed in a protective seed coat. Some fruits are fleshy and juicy, such as mango, apple and orange. Some fruits are hard like almonds and walnuts. Now after this, what will happen once the seed is formed? Now the seeds need to be dispersed. They need to be carried off to different places so that they can develop into a new plant. So that process is called as a seed dispersal or dispersal of seeds. Plants actually benefit by seed dispersal. It prevents the competition between the plant and its own seedlings for sunlight, water and minerals. It also enables the plants to invade new habitats for wider distribution. Now there are various methods of seed dispersal. The dispersal of seeds can take place either with air, it can be done by water, it can be done by animals, or the last option for dispersal of seed is bursting of fruit. When the fruits, they burst automatically, sometimes with jerks, with sudden jerks. So the common examples for the seeds which is spread by air are, these seeds actually they consist of wings so that they can easily be carried off with the air current. So the common examples are seeds of drumstick, seeds of maple, seeds of arak, we can call it as madar also, and also the hairy seeds of sunflower. They get blown off with the wind to far off places. Now the seeds which are dispersed by water, these are the seeds which consist of fibrous outer coat, and the most common example is coconut. The coconut seeds are dispersed by the agency of water. The seeds are dispersed by animals also, especially the seeds which are spiny. They consist of some hook-like structures. We can call it as a spiny seeds. And these seeds, they get attached to the bodies of the animals and are carried to distant places. The most common examples are xanthium, and urena. These seeds, they consist of some hook-like structures, spines, which gets attached to the animal's body, and with the animals they are carried off to the distant places. Some of the seeds, they are dispersed automatically with the bursting of the fruit. Sometimes it happens due to sudden jerks. The seeds are scattered far off from the parent plant, and this happens mostly in the case of castor and balsam. These seeds are actually dispersed by bursting of the fruit. This is balsam. So this is how this completes the sexual reproduction in plants. All the other parts of plants, they are called as vegetative parts, but the reproductive part is called as flower, and this takes place in sexual reproduction. After sexual reproduction, the ovules, they develop into seeds. Seeds are carried off to the distant places where they develop into a new plant. So this is how we have completed with the sexual reproduction in plants.